Easy outside. Let's see here. Oh, all right. So that's happening. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute you, Alex, since we've got a smaller group here than expected. Oh, can I? No, I cannot. Amy, will you?
I think he has to do it.
Oh, okay.
Because
all right.
Yeah, just consent.
All right. Alex, if you want to unmute, you can. We're going to record this and we'll get started here.
How's it going?
Hey, good. Thanks for being here today.
Sorry, I'm not tech savvy. It took me a while to figure out how to unmute myself.
No worries. No worries. We've got a couple almond growers here. Actually, an almond grower and then another guy who's a little diversified with almonds and olives and even some fruits. What do you grow? What's your?
I grow blueberries, cherries, and I used to be a wine grape grower, not anymore.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I don't know if our cover fits into blueberries. It might actually, but definitely cherries. So welcome to the show here. So we're going to run down the Oakville Bluegrass Cooperative programs that we've got for growers, and we're going to focus very much on our AMP grant, which enables growers to tap into some USDA funding for perennial cover, and we'll tell a little more about what the co-op is, and then why permanent or perennial cover might be important to a grower's operations, and then we'll get into the details of the grant funding and our carbon farming program. So we'll just dive right in here. The co-op itself is really set up so that we can bring a community together, and we're focused in terms of community. We're really focused on vineyards and orchards. And so here in California, of course, that's almost a few million acres of production and very high value production agronomically too. So pull together our community with shared goals and try to help people build new markets like soil carbon or biochar, engage and leverage funding sources such as the AMP grant or our SARE grant that we've got right now, a SARE grant that we've applied for biochar. And so leverage funding sources and then develop buying and selling opportunities. On the buying side, if we pool our resources together, pull our leverage together, we can get access to perennial seed such as the Radix hybrid bluegrass seed at basically a wholesale price or a discounted price. Selling opportunities, we see opportunities coming up in the future for selling carbon credits, for selling into the biochar economy that's going to be developing, or even selling into higher value food system markets because of the regenerative work that you all are doing in your orchards or in your blueberry patch. So I think, as a co-op, we're really designed to work together and seek out leverage new markets and buying and selling opportunities for you, and funding, of course. I've got the team here, the team that you'll work with on a day-to-day basis. We've got Ariana Gehrig and Amy Riley. Would both of you say hello and just tell us a little bit about what you do and where people will interact with you in the journey?
Yes. So hello, I'm Ariana Gehrig, and I'm based in Chico, the North State here, and I'm the program manager. And so essentially, for all of these programs, I'll be the one who's following up with you, who will be bugging you, be like, hey, can you give me those maps? But essentially I'm here to help and answer questions, and I'm available to chat on the phone or via email or even set up a meeting or anything like that. But so and right now, like Mike said, we're doing a push for the AMP grant just because summer is going fast, and so we want to make sure we get all the enrollment and paperwork done, and we have to do like an environmental evaluation with NRCS for this program, but we do that for you. But anyway, so we're doing a push for fall so we can get your seed orders in and you can get that cover crop, or that perennial cover rather, in the ground this fall. So anyways, I look forward to working with you folks.
Thanks, Ariana. Amy.
Yeah, and I'm Amy. I am the communications manager. I am probably more southern than everybody. I'm in Riverside County, and close to Little Temecula Valley wine country. So I am probably the first person you hear from when you get emails or if you see something on social media. That's coming from me. Reminder for this meeting today, and love to do it and help develop, educational resources for our members and the community at large as well, that can help us reach these community goals. So that's me, and I love being able to interact with you all as well. So looking forward to a successful season.
Great. Thanks, Amy. I always think of you as being in North San Diego County, not Southern Riverside.
Same thing.
I don't know if it's my bias for San Diego. I don't know. Right on. Well, thank you both. Thanks to both of you. So one of the things that a lot of what we focus on at Oakville Bluegrass is perennial cover. We also will talk about permanent cover, conservation cover, keeping the soil covered with living roots. And we use those phrases almost interchangeably. And so I think one of the important distinctions is just what is considered permanent cover or perennial cover for us versus annual cover. And so with that distinction, I simplify it down to, if a grower is seeding anything, seeding vegetation into their alleys, their middles, on an annual basis to generate above ground biomass, below ground activity, and then tilling it, mechanically terminating it, or chemically terminating it, and then doing that again the next year, we would view that as an annual cover system. And so the flip side of that is a perennial or permanent cover system, in which case the goal is really to plant intentional species. Could be a monoculture of like a turf grass, or it could be something that's got a ton of diversity. But to plant that intentionally and cultivate it in such a way that it stays part of your agronomic system year round, year after year. And we think that in an orchard or a vineyard setting where you've got a tremendous investment in permanent crops that are going to be there for literally decades, that you've got 50 to 60 to 80% of your soil is available for another permanent install of species that are important to you. And we know that there's complications that can come up with that. And so we'll talk about some of the species that can be beneficial to you. But I guess the question is, why would you go through that effort? What we've seen and what we believe, our thesis is that with living roots in the ground, and those living roots could be dormant roots that are below ground, where the above ground biomass is basically gone because the plant's gone dormant. Maybe it's a cool season grass, middle of summer, it's gone. But those roots are still in the soil, and those roots are keeping the soil opened up. They're still alive, and they're keeping the soil in a way that they can infiltrate water more easily, less compaction, better aggregation. And also it continues to feed the microbiome in the soil. So permanent cover or perennial cover, we see it being beneficial to water infiltration, overall water management, beneficial to overall soil health. The microbiome is often healthier with perennials. One of the things that happens with perennials is they are focused on roots over shoots. They're more, the perennial species that we work with primarily are really driving more energy from photosynthesis. They're driving energy into the soil more so than they are to generate above ground biomass and go reproductive by going to seed every year. And so that energy is being pushed into the soil as root exudates, better for soil carbon. They're feeding the microbiome more so than a lot of annuals. And so you're generating a lot of soil impact that's beneficial for your fields. But the other aspect of this that we think is beneficial is that you're not buying seed every year. You're not preparing the ground for seed every year. You're not putting seed into the ground every year, and you're not terminating that vegetation every year. So we look at it as an opportunity to have lower costs annually for your entire system as well. What species and seed options would you have in this type of system? like I said, it could be something as focused as the Oakville Bluegrass. It's the Radix hybrid bluegrass, which is it's a hybridized bluegrass that's very special and unique and can be very, very good for vineyards and orchards. Or you could do like a really wild multi-species mix where you've got annuals that are going to be wildflowers that are going to go seed, they're going to reseed themselves, and you've got some legumes that persist, and you've got grasses that persist. And so you can have a permanent cover system that meets biodiversity goals if that's important to you, that meets pollinator goals if that's important to you. And you can have that, or you could go with something that's very focused and specialized, such as a turf grass. So we've got a lot of options available on that, and we're really we're going to curate this seed plan to each individual grower's interests and goals. We say, what are their goals and what are the guardrails? One of the growers that we're working with had said back in February at a field day, he's like, I don't need 4 feet of mustard and brassica in my orchard every year. I don't need a 4 to 5 foot deep forage mass in my orchard. I want roots in the ground more so than I want all this biomass. And so we can work with them and help meet those goals. And so we'll talk to you about what your goals and guardrails are and get you set up with the seed that's going to work. So to help with this, because one of the things that we've found is that the perennial species seed mixes, wildflowers, native species, things like that could go into a permanent cover mix are generally more expensive. And I don't know if that's a function of the fact that the growers know you're not going to come back next year to buy it, or if it's a production aspect that they're more difficult to produce than the annuals. I think a lot of annuals, by their nature, go to seed very easily and very prolifically. And so, of course, annuals, they do that. So then producing seed for them is easier than perennials, which again are more root focused than they are reproductive focused. So the species that you might put into this system are going to be a little more expensive than normal, and it's a change in practice. And so we've got this USDA AMP grant that supports the installation of permanent cover. It's under NRCS 327, which has a whole basket of perennial, permanent, conservation cover. I think pollinator mix is a subset of NRCS 327. And so that's the category of NRCS codes that we're working under. And we have 100% reimbursement for the seed for the first 10 acres of planted seed. And so the reason I say planted seed is because if you've got a 20-acre orchard and you're just planting 50% of it because you're just doing the alleys, those 10 acres of planted seed would cover your whole orchard. And so you can start working the math here on seeing like how far can you stretch this program, and I think you can take a long ways. That dollar value for that first 10 acres is benchmarked against the hybrid bluegrass that we have access to, which is a fairly expensive seed with a high seeding rate. And so the dollar value that we attach to those first 10 acres is about $3,700 worth of seed. We don't and can't cover the shipping or the sales tax. And so there is some skin in the game from the grower, but there's a good chunk of coverage there on the first 10 acres. Next 100 acres that you may want to plant, and again, planted seed, if you're doing 60%, you might actually be covering 170 acres of orchard or vineyard. We can help with up to $100 per acre for that next 100 acres. And depending on the seed mix that you're using or the seed that you're sourcing or that we're sourcing for you, you may be able to cover this whole increment of 110 acres with this AMP grant. Just depends on what your goals are and what you're looking to put in. We expect a lot of our growers that access this are going to do a 10 acre or 20 acre, pilot. They're going to test it out. If they've got a larger base to work with, they're going to test it out, see what they like. They may do 2 different seed mixes, see which of them they like the best. And then if they've got that 100 acres or more to go into, they're going to expand into that in a second year. And we've got our grant through 2028. So we have the ability to work with growers in that way. The AMP grant is available for domestically owned farms in California, Oregon, Washington, or Arizona. And of course, what you put into the ground as your permanent cover in those contexts, those locations may be very different, but we do have the ability to work with growers in those areas. And then the key thing is that the acres being enrolled for this NRCS 327 treatment under our grant can't be receiving funds for the same practice in the same year. And so if you've got a pollinator grant that you're accessing this year for that same acre, we can't help you with that same acre with the same practice year, but we could next year if that other grant goes away. So we've got to check in on that and just clear that, and then we can move forward. If anybody's had any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll jump to them as we go forward. In terms of the funding process, we think it's going pretty smoothly. Our contact that we work with from the USDA is right over there in Davis. And they're turning around comments on our CPA 52s in a couple weeks. And so we think that we can move pretty quickly with growers in this process. The first thing, of course, is tell us you want to do this. And then we're going to ask you for your FSA documentation. And if you don't have that, we can help guide you to it, to the resources you need to engage to get that FSA documentation. Once we have your FSA documentation, we will walk the CPA 52, which is the application. We will walk that through the USDA on your behalf. I know that for a lot of growers, paperwork is the last thing they want to do more of. And so that administrative support, I think, is an important function where we will be the ones engaging with the USDA, getting that CPA 52 filled out on your behalf, and then get it approved on your behalf. After that, we just have you sign a short agreement saying, okay, we're going to help you get seed. You're going to plant it and not terminate it. And then we'll help you figure out what the seed mix is or the seed species is that you want, connect you to that producer or distributor of seed, and then get that order placed. Logistics, if we've got half a truckload coming to 10 growers from one distributor, then we're going to try to work on logistics to get everybody's shipping costs down. And so we'll help curate that for you. And then, of course, you're going to plant it. And so we believe that we can get from step 1 to step 5 in about 4 to 6 weeks. Planting is going to largely be October, November, December, maybe into January if we're really pushing it. But most of the species that are going to go into these permanent cover systems are largely going to be cool season seeds. And so getting them in mid-fall to early winter, really mid-fall to late fall is ideal, right before that first rain. And then they're gonna thrive and do well over the winter. This offer is good till closed. We think there's about 10 to 15 hours of time that Ariana is putting in for each grower on this in terms of walking you through the process, FSA documentation, discussing your goals and your guardrails for what seed you want, getting the CPA 52 put together, a little bit of back and forth with the USDA, getting some quotes on the seed mix for you, arranging shipping and whatnot, helping arrange a seeder. That we have 2 seeders that are parked at California Ag Solutions that they're gonna maintain and deploy on our behalf to growers and help make sure that our growers have access to those before anybody else. And so there's 10 to 15 hours of work that we're doing on your behalf there. We figure about 45 growers can be in this cohort if we get them all in by September 15th. We expect there to be some last minute October 2nd inquiries about getting seed tomorrow. We know those will come. And so we want to be ready for them, and we're not sure what that'll look like, but we do know that if we get growers in today, in the next few weeks, then we can get them supported and taken care of through this whole process so that that seed will land on their property and be ready to plant when they need it. Susie, go ahead. You got a question? Can she, let's see, we'll need to help her unmute.
Susie, you can also type your question in the chat if that's easier.
I can't unmute her.
Yeah, I can't either. And I don't even have an option to ask her to unmute, so.
Okay. Susie, hopefully you can put that in the chat down below, and we'll come back to it. All right, we're going to jump forward. Susie, let us know what that question is when you get a chance. And that was actually a great spot to take a question on the AMP grant. So we will come back to that once we know what the question is. So the other program that we've got that dovetails really, really well with the AMP grant, and one of the reasons why somebody might want to do perennial and permanent cover in their orchard or vineyard, is the California Soil Restoration Project, which is a carbon farming project that we have. We've collaborated with a group called Recover Ag. I would say they're a tech provider. They're developing what's called an MRV, which is MMRV, measure, monitor, report, and verify. They're developing the technology and the registration behind an MRV that would enable them to become a project developer for soil carbon. And the reason to do that is because the 90% of the acreage in your orchard or vineyard that is not a tree or vine is still soil, and it's still available to grow and grow vegetation, push carbon into the soil, and basically sequester soil carbon from the atmosphere. And so the CSRP is our carbon farming project. Last year was the inaugural year, is kind of our first vintage, I would say, of growers who said they would participate. The growers that jumped in on this span approximately 50,000 acres. They include vineyards and orchards. They enrolled about 10,000 acres into the CSRP. We've got growers from the Central Valley to the Central Coast, all the way up to Oregon. We've got a hazelnut grower up in Oregon. So very diverse geography, multiple crops. And one of the things that makes our carbon farming program different on the grower engagement side is that we don't charge you for the soil carbon measurement. We do a fairly intensive soil carbon measurement process where we'll identify a 40-acre block or smaller if you have a smaller acreage, but we identify an area of interest on your property, and we do a minimum of 10 soil samples from that area. We pay for the soil sampling, we pay for the lab analysis, and we pay for the data and kind of the tech side of the number crunching that goes into that. Other programs or program that I'm aware of requires you as the grower to do the sampling and pay for that yourself. So this removes a major friction point. Also, because this soil carbon isn't sold yet, the contract up front is very loose. It's more of a handshake of interest. And so even when you step into this space and say, I want to participate in the CSRP, there's no contractual obligation until we have a buyer for that soil carbon. And that's one of the hardest parts, is finding the buyers. But we're doing the groundwork up front because we do believe that soil carbon, whether you're solving a carbon problem or you're creating a proxy that solves water, soil health, human health, crop health, input issues, soil carbon is going to become monetized in California in the next few years. And by jumping into this now, we can get the data that builds that argument. We can get you enrolled. We can get your baseline soil carbon measured, and we can start to identify how much soil carbon is being sequestered in your soil to then be sold as a credit. So last year was the 2026 vintage. We basically look at it as, you know, over the course of a year, there's different seasons. There's the cover crop seasons where you're pushing carbon in to the soil. There's the cash crop season where your cover is largely dormant, and if you're not tilling, you're not opening that soil up, and thus you're not releasing a lot of that carbon. So you're sequestering it, and then you go back into the fall again, back into your carbon sequestration sequence. So we look at it as a calendar year for each vintage. And the 2027 vintage of soil carbon would be baseline information that we take at the end of this year and then extrapolate across 2027 and then measure again at the end of 2027 to know how much soil carbon was locked up. So we're currently enrolling new growers as well as existing participants from that first group that are adding some acreage, but enrollment's open. The only way that we would say that enrollment is cut off is if we got to where we had more enrollment and more acreage than we could get out and get sampled, or if it was just a timing perspective. So again, now's the time to enroll in this program, and it's a very simple expression of interest. We need your field information, your crop info, your practice info, and then of course you can tap into the AMP grant to help recoup some of the costs if you're transitioning out of, I'll say conventional. If you're transitioning into no-till for the first time, if you're transitioning into a permanent cover crop or perennial cover crop for the first time, then we can help defer some of those costs with the AMP grant. The perennial cropping, the perennial cover system or the permanent cover system is usually more grass dominant than say brassicas and mustards and things and legumes. And being annuals, it's those roots, the plants push a lot more energy through the roots. And so broadly speaking, you see more soil carbon sequestered and aggregate into your soil with a perennial system than you do with annual. And couple that by not tilling, and you're really locking that soil carbon in. It's good for the soil health, good for water infiltration, and we believe there's going to be an opportunity here to monetize this. And given the typical, if you're using a grass-based system, we believe that drives upwards of $100 in value per acre per year that the grower can receive when these credits are sold. So CSRP is needed, this project is needed to aggregate buyers together to create scale. The Indigo carbon credit program in the Midwest, I believe, has like 7 million acres in it now. It started smaller, of course, but they're also doing soy, wheat, and corn, land that's primarily used to grow soy, wheat, and corn. And their cover cropping season is 4 to 6 weeks in the fall and 4 to 6 weeks in the spring. It's not nearly as powerful as our cover cropping season, because here in California with Mediterranean climate, we can grow a lot of vegetation, whether we want to or not. It often happens, but we can grow a lot of vegetation throughout the winter. And so the buyers of these carbon credits and the process of putting them together as a product developer is very difficult and cumbersome. And I'll show you some of the different activities we've been working on to put this together. But we can have a grower that's got 8 acres. We can have a grower that's got 100 acres. We can have a grower that's got 1,000 acres. And by pooling like for like crops, soil, region, acreage together, we can put it all together as a single project that then starts to look much more attractive to the corporate carbon credit buyers that are out there, whether that's through cap and trade, cap and invest, getting some changes with California Air Resources Board and how that's managed and enabled to come back to soil carbon, or if it's the Microsofts and the Googles and the tech companies that have pledges to reduce their carbon footprint. The more we put together our community, we create the scale that then starts to attract buyers. So it's very much about the power of community. So what's the work plan look like in the last few years? These are all things that either Oakville Bluegrass or Recover Ag have been doing and working on in the last few years. Project design, Amy, how long is the project design document? It's like 30 pages.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's painfully detailed. So project design, secure investors, develop the MRV system. So the system that we're using for the MRV pairs intensive ground truth soil measurement along with, I'll just say AI or machine learning systems that pull in over 400 different data feeds relative to what's going on in your geography. So those 400 data feeds will help inform our system about what kind of soil carbon sequestration could be expected given the context of where you are. It sounds somewhere between hand wavy and magical, but we've tested the system against what's called the Lucas database in Europe, which is about one of the largest multi-geography, multi-land base soil sampling programs in the world. And so there's not a lot of long-term sampling data sets in North America, but this Lucas database has been very effective for us to test this MRV against. And we've been able to demonstrate that the MRV that we've got really narrows down the unknowns and the uncertainty of the system. So secure project accreditation, soil sampling plans, manage sample collection. These are just this is the kind of the work list. And right now we're at issue credits. With the 10,000 acres that enrolled last year, we will be in a position to issue carbon credits that are, we believe, high quality and defensible. And then the next step, of course, is to sell them. But we will be in a position with those folks to issue carbon credits. So it's not simple. it's a brutal process, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's one of those things where small growers, small groups of growers even, would have a hard time putting this together. And so our goal is to make it so that anybody with whatever acres they've got, whether it's a 20-acre farm or a 2,000-acre farm, can participate, and we can bring this acreage together and have a scaled up project that is attractive to buyers. My last thing I'll touch on is cooperative membership. You know, we'll do a seasonal push every year for cooperative membership, typically in the first quarter of the year. That seems like it's a natural time to plan activities for the year ahead. It's when most of the grant cycles that we'll have are either rebooting or kicking off. There's 2 grants that we're applying for this year, an innovation grant and also a SARE grant that would kick off in early 2027 if we get them. And so cooperative membership will always see a big push for people to join and become part of the co-op in the first quarter of the year, but we're open for new members year round. We've got a community of growers here that have as few as 8 acres up to over 5,000 acres in the co-op. Our goal is to support profitable sustainability by building markets that return value. And right now, today, one of the biggest places for that is through the AMP grant, of course. If you get that first 10 acres paid for through the AMP grant, you're saving a bunch of money right out of the gate. Now, we will do that as a service to anybody that comes to us and wants to use it. The next 100 acres, though, depending on what seed you get, the $100 per acre for that next 100 acres may or may not cover that whole seed increment. We will extend discounted pricing to members to help save them even more money on that. And so we've got a goal of growing the base of membership. We also have a goal, like I said, of building markets that return value. And we know that as the biochar, the circular economy of biochar going from orchard to energy and carbon credit and back into orchards, as that starts to develop, we're going to be in the middle of that. And as the soil carbon credit market becomes real in California, we're going to be in the center of that as well. And cooperative members are going to be in a position to benefit financially and just organizationally from being in the midst of all that as well. So we have a SARE grant right now that Ariana, is it completely filled in terms of participants? I'm not sure if do we have room for one more?
We do have room for one more, and yes,
Okay.
we need to confirm with.
Yeah. So we've got a SARE grant right now as well that we need one more member to join or step in and participate in. So we will continually be seeking value opportunities to learn, but also just to deploy the resources that we have access to on greater scale for the growers. And membership can be as low as $125 a year. So I know that $3,000 worth of seed to do a pilot on something that may reduce your costs, operating costs, year over year, is a high value opportunity, and we try to keep the membership as affordable as possible for everybody. We are coming towards the end. Do we have Susie's question?
We do.
Okay, good.
So Susie wants to know, they have seeds for bees and are seeding for the second year. So when would they be eligible for AMP, I think? Okay.
I believe, I'm assuming that is under NRCS 327. So the acreage that you're doing this year with Seeds for Bees, as long as they don't tie that up with for a tail of years to follow, we would be in a position to support you next year, I believe.
And then also Susie mentioned they're very interested in CSRP. When can they enroll?
Yeah.
Good news.
Great question. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So the next steps, really, all of this is very is pretty low effort stuff. We try to make it easy. Next steps for the AMP grant or CSRP enrollment and the membership is really just contact us and say yes. Susie, I'm sure we've got your email since you're on the call here, and so we can reach out to you. But the enrollment for CSRP is a fairly streamlined. I call it an application, but just a survey of your current operations, acreage, where you are. We'll have a more exhaustive intake that does get us, field maps and practice. What kind of practices you've been using in your orchard over the last several years. But getting started is very easy. So we can get you started on that journey this week if you'd like. So thank you. Yeah, right on. And then, so really it's just say yes, hit up Ariana at obc.ag, or we've got our online form at obc.ag/contact. All of these things are very, we try to keep the barriers to entry really low and as friction-free as possible. Obviously, there's information to gather in the process, but yeah, we want to keep it easy, keep it simple for you. So thank you for that. Made my day. And then tell others, tell others. I know that growers are hit up like every day with a new program. You got to try this program. And everybody that's hitting you up to do a program, they've got a vested interest. They've got a belief system or a bank account or something that's going to benefit. We've got ours, and we think we've got some great resources here for growers, especially in the permanent agriculture space of orchards and vineyards. And heck, in California right now, we know that orchards and vineyard operators are getting, it's a tough time, water, climate, markets. There's a lot of things that are challenging, and our goal is to deploy resources that lower some of those costs and improve some of the revenue opportunities. So thank you for that, Ariana, for clarifying that. So anyways, tell others, because we have resources for them. It's easy to access. One of the things that historically was true about our grant was that it was only available to use along with the Radix hybrid bluegrass. That was true a year ago. That's not true now. And so if somebody's looking for a more biodiverse cover system that isn't the hybrid bluegrass, we can help them with that. And so that's one of the things that that changed over the last year. So it's definitely something where we want to re-inform everybody about the opportunity that we've got and how the grant can be leveraged for their benefit. So yeah, just say yes. And then we said 45 minutes and we're coming up on 42 and a half. So I'll open it up to any questions that remain, if there are any. Otherwise, we look forward to having a few of you in our programs.
Just make sure to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
That's right. That's right. Nirver. Hello.
Hello. Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having this time to share what you guys offer to the producers or to the farmers. So let's say someone is already having a seed through some sort of a healthy soil program. So can we still involve and get benefits of the AMP grant, or it has to be just one grant?
Yeah. I know with the AMP grant, this is similar to what Susie asked. I know with the AMP grant, we cannot deploy funds from that for any acreage that's been treated with the same practice, like cover crop, NRCS 327, with federal funds. So I think you said healthy soils, which makes me think of it being a state program. So
yes, the CDFA.
yeah. So the question that I would want to tap into there is, did the CDFA funds come from a federal participation, or is it all state funds? And I'm going to optimistically say that if it's purely state money, then the federal funds could be used for the AMP grant. And then we would, if that's the case, we would just want to talk about, what do you want to achieve with this that you're not achieving with the other, and make sure that that you're getting the best from both resources. If CDFA funds are using federal funds that are being cycled through CDFA, then I think we need to wait until that grant is done and then come in behind that with this program.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's look into it.
Yeah.
We can reach out to you and schedule some time to dig into that with you a little more and find out what's going on there.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
It says, just on a quick search here, it says that it's not using federal funding, but that's just, I don't know exactly what program, but it says it's coming from Prop 4 for these block grants. So
well, that's our taxes. That's our taxes. That's our state taxes. So yeah. Thank you for that question. That's a good one to dig into, and heck, that may be a blocker that a lot of people think they've got. That if we can solve that for you, we can solve it for a lot of people. So let's check it out. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go and wrap it up. And I thank you all for coming to the show, to the conversation today. AMP grant is easy to get into. Like I said, I think we've got bandwidth to support about 45 growers. We've got 15 to maybe 17 now that are in that process right now. So we believe we could bring about 30 more into it, and especially if we can get them started before September 15th. So let's reach out to us, and we'll get started on your grant processing for you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna end it now. All right, we'll see y'all.